India already has the uncomfortable honor of having the world's deadliest air, and now a Boston-based advocacy group's report called the Study of Global Air 2017 has said over 1 million people had early deaths because of pollution in India, and that India and China together account for half the world's total pollution deaths. You heard that right. That's 50% of pollution deaths worldwide happen in India and China. Yet just a few days ago, our Environment Minister went on record to say there's no conclusive data to establish a direct correlation of death exclusively with air pollution. Is the government in denial? What can we do as concerned citizens as this terrifying new report signals an urgent call for action? Just what is the pollution solution? That's our big question on The Buck Stops Here tonight. Now, joining us on this program tonight from Boston, Dan Greenbaum, president of the US-based Health Effects Institute, which has published the report that says pollution caused India and China had half the world's pollution deaths in 2015. From London tonight, we're joined by Harish Salve, former Solicitor General and amicus curiae on the environment, perhaps one of the biggest environment warriors in our courts. Sunita Narayan from the Center of Science and Environment also joining us on this discussion tonight, and we are hoping to have Aman Sinha from the BJP. Unfortunately, no representative of the government could join us on this program tonight, perhaps a reflection of their priorities. But let me begin with Dan Greenbaum, whose agency, in fact, came up with this report that talks about these utterly terrifying numbers. Dan Greenbaum, 1.1 million pollution deaths in just 1 year, 2015. That's what this report highlights. India and China together accounting for half the population deaths in the entire world. I have to begin by asking you just how accurate are these numbers? How do you link all these deaths to air pollution?
Well, it's understandable you asked that question, and I'm pleased to be here. These are the most comprehensive systematic analyses of these worldwide, looking at the best science from every country of the world, connecting air pollution with health effects, and then systematically using satellite data and on-the-ground monitors to estimate how bad the air pollution is in any given country and what the trends have been. So, are they perfect? Could they be off by 5% in one direction or another? Yes, of course, but they are quite accurate.
So you vouch for these numbers. What would you want to highlight to our viewers as perhaps the most alarming aspect as far as India is concerned that this report highlights?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble understanding your question, but I think the number one issue here is that India has started to take action, but what we saw in this year's report is that China, who began taking action 5 to 7 years ago, has started to see, because of aggressive actions, for example, on existing thermal power plants, to see the level of air pollution level off and the health impact change. India has started those actions just in the last year. But there's still quite a bit to do.
All right. I think that's a very significant point that Dan Greenbaum is making. Sunita Narayan, I'd like you to come in on this because the report seems to highlight that as far as well, we'll try and go across to Sunita Narayan in just a moment. But Harish Salve, come in on this at this point. This report clearly an urgent call for action. Your crusade for better air dates back so many years, perhaps to 1985, critically when you were appointed amicus in a PIL, where the order finally led to the use of CNG in all public transport buses here in Delhi. Would you say we've lost all the dividends that we had gained then, and perhaps more recently in the ban on diesel vehicles, when you see numbers that are quite as alarming as this?
Well, let me start by saying that this is a battle which each citizen has to fight. So first thing we must do is stop saying the government has done nothing. each of us, when we buy the second or the third car or we go out for a drive unnecessarily, is doing something which we shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
So we have to make this a citizens' movement. No government with best of its efforts can resolve this. Having said so, there are certain fundamental issues. And you rightly flag the concern as to have we wasted away the gains from switching to CNG. The answer is yes and no. No for the reason, well, that is at least a gain which we made, otherwise it would have been worse. Yes, because that had to be followed up along with a slew of other measures. The most important being we have to relieve traffic congestion in our metros. We have to contain the construction activity in a way that it doesn't spread pollution. And I mean, there's so many aspects of urbanization which we have to bring under control. And without a full citizens movement, this is not going to happen. So I think we are in India insufficiently aware of how serious this problem is. And let me tell you my concern. If you say the government has not done something, that very moment the average citizen feels he has washed his hands off the problem.
Right.
Because it is not my problem.
No,
it's the
I
government's
completely
problem.
take your point, Harish Salve, that this is as much about each one of us as concerned citizens. It is about the media. It is about the whole community and society coming together. But, you know, you have perhaps been one legal voice in the country that's responsible for some of the most breakthrough rulings when it comes to pollution. But despite some of those legal victories, implementation has been a huge stumbling block, whether it comes to the diesel cap ban not being implemented, to the graded response system, cracking down on crop burning. These are all things that have reached the courts, but yet low-hanging fruit perhaps that we haven't managed to reap the benefits of.
See, absolutely. Let's take crop burning. It's a very serious problem. Do we need a court to tell people you should be burning crops and polluting neighboring cities? Why do you need a court to say that? Look at what we are doing with our diesel power generation or our furnace oil or coal power generation. Do we need a court to tell the government that to try and give disguised subsidies, you're giving cheap gas to fertilizer plants, and then you're saying that we don't have enough gas for power plants? So these are things which partly governance, partly citizens movement, partly state governments, everybody has been remiss in what they should be doing, because everybody feels pollution is some elitist problem and let's not worry about it. So I'm happy these kind of reports bring out. And in India, you must also bring out the demography of injury. Pollution hits the most vulnerable the highest: older people, children, and people who are not as well affording to live in clean, sparse colonies and have to live in crowded areas. So I think once this has to be brought out, and you have to make this a citizen movement. I mean, I can give you a laundry list of things which we need to do to fix pollution.
Right.
You talk of power generation, we've got it wrong. You talk of the way we run our public transport, we've got it wrong. Look at our roads, they are already overcrowded. Look at the urban decay, that is adding to pollution. Everything adds to pollution. So it is not a one thing like banning a diesel vehicle. Of course, we need to do each of the above. But it has to be a citizens' war on pollution. Otherwise, it's going to only get worse, and the damage may soon become irreversible.
Right. I think that's precisely what this report actually hones in on. And Sunita Narayan, if I can come back to you at this point, this report in particular, of course, it flags India and China as being the worst off and together contributing to half the world's pollution deaths. But it also talks about how China seems to have at least partly managed to stabilize the problem, particularly of PM 2.5, whereas in India, that seems to be a situation that's worsening. Dan Greenbaum, if I'm correct.
That is correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yes. Sunita, if you'd like to respond.
No, absolutely, Ankita. And I think what this report has done is to tell us that we have to take action much faster and we need much harder action. But what is also clear is in the last 4-5 months that there has been action. And I think Mr. Salve has taken this issue to court. We have got a graded action plan. We have got Badarpur power plant closed. We need to do a lot more across the country. We have got now a clear direction for cleaner fuel to come in advance across the country. In the NCR, we are asking for a ban on furnace oil, on pet coke. We need to make sure across India we disincentivize dirty fuel. We have incentive for natural gas. We need to do this at a scale, because what the report by Dan and his colleagues clearly show, that we have one common airshed in India, that we cannot just act in Delhi and think that the problem has gone away. We will have to take this action across the country.
Yes, Delhi seems to be so symptomatic of the problem, and indeed being the capital, it's always highlighted. But this report, of course, talks about India as a whole. And when you look at India's top polluted cities, they really nobody is kind of very far away from Delhi's numbers. But Aman Sinha, I want you to, and I have to keep highlighting these figures because they are just so shocking. 1.1 million deaths, according to this report, in just 1 year alone. The worst air in the world, a situation where India is taking over China, and it's absolutely nothing to be proud of. It's a sad reflection of priorities that we couldn't get a government voice on this program tonight, but I hope as spokesperson for the BJP, you will at least help us to understand the official position on this. Was the Environment Minister in denial when he said just a few days earlier that there is no conclusive data to establish a direct correlation of death with air pollution?
No, there's no question of any denial mode. Air pollution is a serious problem, and it's serious precisely because of the reason that the governments in past 6-7 decades have not given much attention to this issue, which is a very important issue. And as far as findings of this specific report is concerned, I do not know on what basis these findings have come, and therefore I would not like to comment on that. However, this is indeed a problem, and it is a problem because this has been lying in neglect for past 6-7 decades. Now the present government, Ankita, has accorded top priority to the subject of curbing pollution, whether it is Swachh Bharat, Clean India Mission, and large number of initiatives have been taken in order to curb the air pollution. And in fact, the Swachh Bharat initiative has been inspired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji himself. And I agree with Mr. Salve that this has to become a citizens movement, just like Swachh Bharat movement is no longer a Sarkari program, it has become a citizens movement. Similarly, this effort of curbing the air pollution, all citizens also have to contribute. A lot has been done, but a lot more also requires to be done. There is a new notification on National Ambient Air Quality Standards. There is a formulation of large number of regulations and codification. Okay,
but Mr. Sinha, I'm just going to give you one example. Doesn't garbage burning still continue despite the notifications? We have any number of laws, we have any number of guidelines. What about implementation? I'm going to ask you a straight question. This is a government that prides itself on its ability to take hard decisions and implement them. If it could carry out demonetization to clean up the economy, crack down on black money, why can't we have a similar surgical strike when it comes to pollution? Is it just not enough of a priority?
Well, Ankita, you will appreciate that as far as implementation is concerned, it squarely lies within the domain of the state governments. However, the central government is doing its utmost. Mr. Salve was referring to how pollution has been affecting the weaker sections of the society. And let me tell you, the campaign initiated by Prime Minister, which was to give up the LPG subsidy. Crores and crores of people, they are not now they don't have to use that same coal chula which they were using earlier. And they are all getting LPG now in the rural households, in the weaker sections of the society. So there are crores and crores of people who have been taken out of this
absolutely,
pollution or gas chamber which was prevailing in their.
Yes.
May I just complete, Ankita?
Go ahead.
And similarly, there are large number of measures in urban centers also. We have proposed to move to the Euro 6 norms directly. and there are large number of regulations on waste burning, etc. I acknowledge that there are challenges in implementation considering the pressures that we have in our society.
But Mr. Sinha,
However,
our
it is for the
environment
state
minister
governments
refuses to
implement,
even
and wherever
accept
they have any difficulty,
that
central
there is a
government
clear
is willing to do
correlation
its
between air
utmost in order to
pollution and
ensure
death.
their implementation.
Our environment minister refuses to accept that there is a clear correlation between air pollution and early deaths. But anyway, be that as it may, Sunita Narayan, we're talking about specific interventions.
Ankita, I am not privy to this report.
Yes.
I cannot comment on its data.